Howdy guys, welcome back to Diesel Creek. If this is your first time joining us, my name's Matt. Behind me, this rusty relic is my 1962, I think it is, Galion 503 road grader. Now if this is your first time seeing this beast, there's a whole playlist on it on the channel page. You can go check that out. It's probably linked up here in the corner or down in the description. Anyways, I pulled this grader out of a tree line over the winter. I brought it home here, I started working on it, and I was gonna just fix it enough to use it around here, but I think we ended up down a tangent, and now we're kind of doing a restoration on it, albeit not a very good one. I was calling it a socially distant restoration because it'll look better from 6 feet away. But anyway, I have it all torn down and I'm almost ready for paint. I was gonna paint it out here underneath the trees because I'm kind of a shade tree kind of guy. But I decided that that wasn't quite good enough. I have a building right behind you guys. I might as well stick it in there and paint it. I just have a lot of other stuff I had to move around to make this thing fit. So I got all that done and we're ready to try and push it into the building. To aid us in that endeavor, we're going to be using the Clark 125C that is behind the grader there. And there's also some videos on that channel if you're interested. That one hadn't been run in 20 some years and now I'm using it all the time. I have a feeling that it's going to go smoother in my mind than it will in reality here, but we're about to find out. Well, that went about as well as I could have hoped for, I guess. Took a little bit of maneuvering, but I was able to get it in here. I didn't get into the cab at all with the bucket, which is what I was really worried about. Thanks to hydraulics that bleed off really quickly, we already have the rear end sitting on some blocks, and I didn't even have to get back in the cab. I stopped right here because from sitting underneath these trees for a couple months here since the last time I steam cleaned it and everything, it's got a nice pollen film on it again, and there's some oily spots from me removing the hydraulic lines and all kind of other stuff. So what I'm going to do is leave it right there, and I'm going to steam clean this thing, and then once I get it really good and clean, then I'll shove it under the roof where I will wire wheel it to a lovely finish and then shoot it with paint. Like I said, we're not going to go too crazy here. It's a socially distant restoration. So basically I'm just going to take care of all these rough edges, you know. It's not going to look like a showpiece, but it's going to look a heck of a lot nicer than it does now. And that's good enough for what I'm doing here. I set her down a little harder than intended there. It was almost like the controls are touchier when the machine's off, which is weird. That's not hydraulic oil pouring out of there, that's just water. Relax. I think we've got all the hydraulic fluid pushed out of every line at this point, so at least we'll have a nice fresh system when we put it back together. Well, Christine's back in the shop. I did give it another good steam bath. I've already done a video on steam cleaning Christine, so I didn't figure I'd make you guys sit through another one, especially because it wasn't very dirty. But back in the shop, pop the front tires back off. I'm about to set it down here, and that's where it's going to rest until this thing is painted. Oh, you... Okay, I got her all cleaned off again after her little hydraulic bath incident again. Steam cleaned it this morning, let it dry again, and I've been going around doing the final preparations before we wire wheel and prime this thing. A couple people in previous videos had told me to use aluminum foil for doing some paint prep work, and I tell you what, it works out pretty darn good. I used it here for capping off these hydraulic fittings to keep the paint out of the threads. I got to put some on this chrome yet. Where else did I use it? I've used it in several places. So I wrapped all the spool valves here with aluminum, and it works a lot better than tape. Like, it's a lot easier to work with, I guess I should say. I used it to plug all these pipe fitting holes in my cylinders, and it's just going to keep the paint out of the threads. I removed all the hoses that we don't need to have on there, so they're not going to be in our way. Next thing I need to do is I'm going to tape off the Galion badge, well, what's left of the Galion badges. Tape those off, tape off the headlights, tape off our serial number tags, gauges. I'm just going to tape off the actual gauges. The rest of the switches and buttons are going to need removed. They're junk, but I don't want to take them out until I can figure out the wiring. Another badge up there. I'm going to wrap the steering wheel in aluminum as well as the joystick handles. Got to remove that broken rear view mirror up there. I'm going to throw some tape over the wire loom, the starter here, the input shaft, all that. Keep it from getting painted. And then I guess we'll go ahead and bust out the wire wheel and just start lightly going over everything and cleaning up our rough spots. I can't wait to get this thing all one color. It's going to look so much better. See, I just folded up this foil like so. Try to keep it a nice straight edge here. Wrap that around. I think now we made us a nice little collar there to keep the paint off the chrome. We can slide it up tight, kind of give it a twist, lock it in place. That should look good. Now, being as this is my first time working with the foil like this, I'm kind of just figuring things out as I go here, but it does seem like always folding it in half gives you a nice clean edge to work with all the time. It seems to make things a bit easier. And like in this case, the knobs are tapered so it doesn't quite work right. So I'm just going to lift it up a little bit, cheat it up higher than the bottom, and then I'll put one pass of tape around that. All right, well, some of you may remember in the previous episodes working on the old grader here, there were several studs used to hold on the hydraulic lines all the way out the stick here. I guess that's the technical name for this on a grader. Is that, anybody know? Down in the comments, let me know. What is that part on a grader called? This whole front stick here. I think it's either a stick or a boom. You guys let me know. Anywho, back to the studs. They were very, very old, very, very rusted, and upon trying to remove them, most of them broke. So there's a broken one there, there's a broken one there, and two broken off right here. That one's still good. And I think there's a couple more further down. But anywho, these were special studs that they weld on with like a spot welding gun. I'm not that fancy, I don't have that stuff, so I'm just gonna whack those off with the cutoff disc real quick, take some 1/4 bolts, weld them right on there. We'll be back to good as new. Well, we got all 6 of those welded back on. Not the prettiest job in the world because my poor little 110 welder here, which is running off of like a 50 or maybe even 100-foot extension cord, she doesn't quite have the juice to push into that thick steel, but they're on there good enough. That's all those are doing, is just keeping lines from rattling around. They don't need to be super strong, so they'll be fine. Actually, I think they're held on better than the original ones. They didn't have much on the original ones either. All right, we're on to the last phase before paint. I'm getting pretty excited. We're getting close here. In an ideal world, we would sandblast this whole machine down to bare metal. And in an ideal world, we would sand this whole machine down to bare metal, probably sandblast it all, and start from nothing. And it would be a showroom finish when I was done. But in the reality, I'm in an open air shop with a gravel floor, so that would all just kind of be a waste anyways. So we're gonna use the old angle grinder here with the wire wheel on it, and we're just gonna go over all the rough spots, get all the heavy rust, take care of all that stuff, and then we'll clean it off as best we can and shoot it with some primer. The only reason I'm really even going with the wire wheel is just to knock off all the really high ridges of paint, because there's like 5 different layers of paint on here. So like on the cab door here, you can see there's like 2 or 3 layers of paint chipped down to the original layer, which makes a substantial gap. So when you shoot that with primer, you'd see all those little holes coming through in the primer, and then eventually the paint. So we're just gonna wire wheel it. You can see I already did this spot right here, and it looks a lot better, and it easily took the original paint off down to bare metal. And I don't think it would take much more to get rid of that little bit there. I only just did that for 2 seconds on that spot. So yeah, we're gonna focus on all the spots that are gonna look pretty whenever you shoot it, all the big flat areas, all the nooks and crannies kind of places down, say on this turntable drive. Not too worried about that. I think that'll just look fine whenever it's painted up. But the whole boom here, you know, the places that you're really gonna draw your eye, we're gonna spend a little bit more time on those, make it look a little bit more presentable. But remember, at the end of the day, this is a socially distant restoration, so you keep your distance and it's gonna look great. Holy crap! Ah. Well, I don't know if it felt like it in the video, but that just took almost 3 days. Now, granted, they weren't full days, but I probably got a solid 15 to 20 hours, I'm not exaggerating, and just wire wheeling on the old grader here. I'm dirty, my arms are sore, I smashed my finger. It's been a good time. But it's behind me now. Now we get to blow this thing off and see what crud remains underneath. Gonna fire up the air compressor, blow the dust off, and then we'll get out the prep solvent, start wiping everything down, making sure we get rid of all the dust and oil, grease, contaminants, whatever may be laying on the surface. And then we'll get to priming. Yeah, getting excited. Okay, time to do a little bit of dust blowing here. I got a big fan over here sucking all the dust that way, which is also the way the wind blows, so the wind will be kind of helping us out if the wind blows. And I got the compressor over here rigged up into a tank, so we have more volume than my little compressor normally has. I got big air dryer over there, and once I put the paint gun on, I also have one of those inline deals. Let's make some dust. Okay, blew the whole thing off good with the compressed air, changed into some clothes that aren't completely packed with yellow dust. Now I'm taking clean rags and my prep solvent over here, and we're just wiping everything down, make sure we get all the dust and grease and other contaminants that might still be lingering around. Got to get that stuff off, otherwise it's going to cause problems with the paint. I started up at the highest place, working my way down. I'm sure you're gonna tell me I should be wearing rubber gloves, and I'm sure I should, but I tried for like 3 minutes and the gloves were just filling up with sweat. I'm not gonna do it. You can't make me. Ugh. All right. Whew. Everything about this job just keeps taking longer and longer than I planned for it to. That just took like a good 2 hours to wipe this thing down really well, and I probably still missed like all the spots. So yeah, I guess we're just gonna head and shoot it with some primer now, and the spots we missed will show themselves now, won't they? All right, so to keep with the running theme of almost doing a good job here, we've got the Cheapo Depot Harbor Freight spray gun, which actually I've had good luck with. I got my old one here as a backup. A lot of people tell me they just buy these things and throw them away when they're done, but I've cleaned this one out and used it several times, and it's been decent-ish. I think something's clogged up on it now, because the last time I tried to use it I couldn't get it to work right. But yeah, so just bought a new one so that we don't have that problem. She's a beaut. All right, now for our paint, I'm not affiliated with these guys, but this is the XO Rust stuff I've been using for the rest of the machine. A lot of people online have mixed reviews about this stuff. I've had pretty good luck with it. It says in real big letters on here somewhere, do not thin. But I've done it plenty of times and never had a problem. So we're gonna go ahead and thin that out and make it sprayable because it's pretty thick. All right. A fancy little power stir here. I gotta grab the drill and we'll get this mixed. Always a big mess trying to pour out of the gallon jugs. Never works out. I have the fancy little spout you're supposed to put on these things. I never remember to use it or bring it in this case. There's probably ratios and stuff that you're supposed to know, but I don't know them. Alright, I got the cardboard here. We're going to go ahead and spray a couple little test spots, make sure we get our gun adjusted good enough. And I got to fire up the compressor now, so it's going to be a little loud. I am whooped. It is midnight. I just ran out of primer. I just ran out of primer, but we're so close to being done. One more gun full and I'd have this thing finished. It looks like I'm gonna have to come back tomorrow. I'm probably just gonna get a whole nother gallon and put a whole nother coat on it, because I'm sure there's some thin spots, especially once the sun comes out. It'll be a lot easier to see. These lights are good, but you know, nothing's a match for daylight. So, yeah. It looked like the primer laid pretty nice though. I don't see any issues. I think I only got like 1 or 2 little runs in like stupid places. I mean, yeah, you can see there's a couple little spots right there. Who's ever gonna see that? Who cares? I think it looks pretty darn good. Oh, I didn't do the sealing in the cab either. Boy, this cab's tough to get. You can't really like get up in there, because then you're painting like right in front of your nose. And you know, you lean across to spray over here, and then you go around and try to do the same for this side, and you're leaning up against everything. It was a pain. You need to plan your work. But yeah, I think another coat of primer will help fill in some of the rougher spots, little rust pits, stuff like that. But I am currently pretty happy with it. I'm gonna clean up my mess and go home. Well, y'all, as if you needed more evidence, the grader Christine is officially cursed. Even though I'm trying to pretty her up and take good care of her, she's still trying to bite me here. And a freak incident just caused me a whole lot more work here. Maybe you guys saw in the last video, I don't know if it was the last video at this point by the time you're seeing this, but I made a video about cleaning up some stormed down trees that were around the shop here, and they landed right about where the bucket's sitting for the excavator. And I didn't even notice this at the time, but it's the only explanation I can come up with. If you needed more evidence to believe that this machine is actually trying to get me or is cursed in some way, I got it right here for you, because I would have never imagined in 1,000 years that this was possible, but it's the only explanation that I can come up with. So since I primed that machine, it rained for like 2 weeks straight, it seemed like, or I just didn't have the time to come back out and do anything with it. So it's been sitting for like 2-3 weeks at this point since the primer was laid down. In that time, we had a big bunch of rain come through here and take down some trees, and you guys saw me cut them up in a video here. They were laying right here in the back of the shop where about the excavator is sitting right now. But at the time of all that rain and the trees falling down, the excavator was not parked in here. Nothing was parked in this spot. And I didn't even notice this until today. I was back out here thinking about starting to put a second coat of primer on this thing. And look at this. That is mud sprayed all over Christine. I mean, just everywhere. The whole machine is covered in mud. Look at it, just slobbered all over the light there. Big clump of it right there. Look at that. Chunks and chunks of mud sprayed all the way up clear onto the cab here, onto the valve bank, everywhere. And the only thing that I can explain this, the only way I can explain this, is that when those trees fell out there, they were sitting in a big puddle. So when they hit the ground, they must have just slingshotted a giant wad of mud, or a giant wall of mud, right onto this thing. Had I had a machine parked here like I do now, that machine probably would have taken the brunt of it and got little to nothing onto old Christine. But as it is, she got the brunt of it. And I'll bet you, I know for a fact it is. It is over 20 feet from the tip of the grader out to where those trees fell. and the even better part is, hardly anything, I don't see any mud that managed to spray up onto the bulldozer, and I don't see any mud that managed to spray up onto the Jeep or the auto car. And they were all sitting here just like the grader. How does that happen? What are the odds? So now I am forced to pretty much just spray this thing down again. As much as I hate to, there's just so much dirt caked onto everything that you'd never get it clean enough to put a second coat of primer, let alone paint on it. And look at more over here, just gobs and gobs of it. So I'm gonna have another 6 or 8 hours just getting this thing prepped again for another coat of paint, which is a real kicking the you know what. So anyways, yeah, I would have liked to finish painting this thing in this video, but I want to get something out on this thing to you guys. Everybody's been asking me for Christine footage, so here it is. She's still here, she's still cursed, and I'm still working on it. And she's making me earn it, but I'm gonna make her beautiful one way or another. Anyways, guys, if you like the video, if you like watching Christine take her swings at me, go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. It really helps the channel out and doesn't cost you a thing. Also, be sure you subscribe so I can see you on the next video. I got some scrubbing to do. Thanks for watching. Later.